My son told me to stay out of his marriage, so I did. I stayed out of everything I paid for, including the house I gave them as a wedding gift. What happened next? Well, if they weren't ready for that. Before we begin, thank you for listening to this story. If this story speaks to you, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I read every single one. Now let me tell you what happens when a mother reclaims her name. I gave that boy everything. Not just the big things, the food, the roof, the education. I gave him my knees, my spine, my prayers. I gave him my 20s, my 30s, and all the peace I never got back. His daddy left when he was 3, said he'd come back after he figured himself out. He's still figuring, I guess. But David was my entire reason. I worked double shifts at Metro Hospital, cleaning vomit off tile, and praying that my back would hold up just long enough to get through one more room. And when I came home, I made dinner from scratch, helped him with homework, listened to him tell me about the weird kids at school, and how he wanted to build houses when he grew up. We used to dream together, me and him. I'd tell him, Mama's gonna get us a house with no upstairs neighbors, one where the walls don't hear nobody arguing. And he'd say, I'm gonna be rich one day and buy you one with a garden. I smiled every time, even when my hands were too sore to hold a spoon. When I bought my first house at 42, you would have thought I won the lottery. A little yellow brick number with crooked shutters and a creaky porch, but it was mine. I planted roses in the front yard and named each one after a struggle I survived. Eviction, exhaustion, betrayal, pneumonia. They bloomed anyway, just like I did. By the time David was 34, he was doing well. Worked at some firm downtown, talked about client acquisition and equity potential. I didn't understand half of it, but I always asked questions. I stayed involved. When he brought home Ashley, I smiled and baked sweet potato pie. She was pretty, hair always slicked, nails always done. She spoke with a tone like every word was a business pitch. I didn't mind it. I figured it was just her style. I offered to help with wedding planning. She declined politely, but firmly, so I didn't push. When they got married, I gave them the house. Not a check, not a loan, the house. That little yellow brick sanctuary I worked my whole damn life for. I'd already moved into a small condo closer to work. I didn't need much anymore. I wanted them to have something real, something safe, something solid. Start your life in a place built on sacrifice, I told them. They both smiled. Ashley said thank you, but it was quick, rehearsed, like she'd said it a dozen times that day. I chalked it up to wedding nerves. At first, everything seemed normal. I'd drop off leftovers every now and then. I'd get photos of their redecorating. Then the communication slowed. First it was days without texts, then weeks. I'd call and David would answer with that distracted voice, the one people use when they're not alone. I started noticing things like how every picture they posted said, finally built our dream space, or started from the bottom, now look. I wasn't mentioned once. I let it go, thought maybe they were just adjusting to married life. Then came the day I brought over a peach cobbler. I didn't tell them I was coming. I just baked it and went. Peach cobbler was always David's favorite, ever since he was a boy. He'd asked for it on every birthday, every job interview, every rough day. He once said it was better than anything in the world, even video games. I remembered that while I pressed the crust down, brushing the sugar over the top. I remember thinking, maybe this would reconnect us. I got to the house, my house, and knocked. David opened the door halfway. Not wide, not welcoming, just halfway. We've talked about this, Mom, he said. I blinked. Talked about what, baby? You can't just pop up. Ashley and I, we have boundaries. A schedule. That word, boundaries. I could have spit. I hadn't raised him with guilt, hadn't hovered like those TV mamas. I showed up maybe once every few weeks, always with food, always with a smile. Before I could respond, I heard her voice behind him. Honestly, David, we've been thinking about changing the locks. She said it like she was asking for sparkling water flat. And then she laughed. Laughed. He laughed too. My boy, the one I held through night fevers and middle school breakups, he chuckled like she'd said something clever. And then he turned back to me and said, We're good, Mom. Thanks though. The door closed.
Just like that.
I stood there holding that cobbler like an idiot. My arms were stiff. I felt like a delivery woman. No kiss on the cheek, no, how are you? Just dismissed. Erased. I walked back to my car. The air was warm. The cobbler steamed against the foil like it didn't know it was unwanted. I sat behind the wheel and stared at that house. The roses were still blooming, but they weren't mine anymore. I looked in the rearview mirror, saw Ashley leaning over David's shoulder, showing him something on her phone. They both laughed again. That laugh used to be my favorite sound in the world. It used to mean joy, safety, home. But now it sounded like a lock turning from the inside, like a door closing that I paid for. I didn't cry. I didn't cuss. I went home. I put the cobbler in the fridge. I poured myself some tea. And then I walked into my bedroom, opened my file cabinet, and pulled out the deed. They thought I was just a guest in that house. They forgot who built it. And I was about to remind them, quietly, legally, completely. I didn't touch that cobbler for days. Every time I opened the fridge, it sat there on the second shelf like it was waiting for me to admit I'd been played, like it knew it wasn't just dessert anymore. It was evidence. A symbol of everything I gave that got laughed at, mocked, forgotten. I couldn't bring myself to throw it out. That's how deep it cut. But I didn't cry. You reach a point in life where tears feel like luxury, like a younger woman's game. When you've buried people, worked overtime while sick, and stayed strong while folks cracked around you, you learn to turn pain into silence. Not weakness, silence. The kind that makes people uncomfortable because they don't know what's coming next. I sat at my table for hours that night, flipping through the same manila folder I hadn't opened since David's wedding. It held every important piece of paper I had, birth certificates, insurance copies, and at the very back, tucked behind a plastic sleeve, the deed. Not just any deed.
The deed.
The house on Maple Street wasn't just a building, it was my life in brick and drywall. Every nail in that place was paid for in hours of my life I'll never get back. Scrubbing floors, emptying bedpans, skipping lunch to buy floor polish. That house was my lungs, my knees, and my sacrifices poured into one address. When David and Ashley got married, I gifted it to them.
But I didn't do it blind.
I had a clause added. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Patricia, told me, if you're giving away something this big, you keep your parachute. So we included it, a line so small you'd miss it if you were arrogant. Gift is subject to continued familial relationship and respect. In the event of abuse, alienation, or defamation of grantor, property may revert back to original owner upon legal notification. I never thought I'd use it. But that night on the porch, when David said, this isn't your house anymore, and Ashley joked about changing the locks, something snapped. Not just emotionally, logically. They didn't just disrespect me. They declared themselves sole authors of something I wrote the first draft of. They wanted the benefits of my labor without the burden of my presence. A house without the woman who bled for it. A legacy without the name.
No.
I was done begging to be seen in the frame. I was about to remove the frame altogether. I laid out everything on the dining table, printed every receipt, every maintenance invoice, every property tax bill, proof of ownership from day one. Then I drafted a legal notice, intent to reclaim title under conditional clause. I didn't rush. I read it 3 times. Called Patricia. She answered on the first ring. You sure? She asked. As sure as I was when I gave it to him, I said. Then let's go to war. Quietly. She smiled. I didn't. 3 days later, I sent the notice to the county registrar. Certified overnight, legally binding. 1 to David, 1 to Ashley, 1 posted directly on the front door of the house I bled to buy. I heard nothing. No text, no call, no knock at the door. Just silence. Until 5 days later when my phone rang. Blocked number. I let it ring twice, then picked up. Mama, what the hell is this? David's voice was clipped, almost shaking. What's what? There's a notice on our door saying we have 30 days to vacate. Are you serious? It's not your door, I said calmly. It's mine. His silence crackled on the other end. You gave us that house, Mama, as a gift. I gave it to the man I raised. The one who knew better than to laugh at his mother on the porch she built. That wasn't. Ashley didn't mean anything by that. She meant it when she said she was changing the locks. That was enough. He exhaled hard. You're punishing us over a joke? I'm reclaiming my name before y'all erase it entirely. A long pause. Do you know how this makes us look? I almost laughed. Boy, you worried about how you look? You should be worried about how you treated me. He hung up. No goodbye, just a click. The next morning, Ashley posted some slick video online, one of her crying into the camera about boundaries and respect and how her husband's mother was trying to ruin their marriage. She never said my name, never mentioned the house, just enough crocodile tears and soft piano music to stir up sympathy. But the internet, it's not as dumb as she thinks. People started piecing it together. A few folks reposted the wedding pics, the captions claiming they built everything from scratch. One woman even dug up a Facebook post I made the day I gave them the house. She quoted me word for word. I pray this home gives you the peace I never had. Build wisely. That went viral. Her little video got buried under comments like, y'all erased that woman's whole name. She gave you a house and you mocked her. Black mothers are not disposable. She tried deleting it, then she went private. I didn't say a word. I just waited. Meanwhile, the clock ticked. 25 days left. Then 20. Then 15. No calls, no apologies, just whispers. And every time I opened that fridge and saw that cobbler, I thought, they still think this is a negotiation. But it wasn't. It was already done. And they were running out of time. 7 days left. That's all they had, and they didn't even know it. Or maybe they did, and were just pretending they didn't. That's how some people cope with consequence. They ignore it until it shows up in the form of a sheriff with a clipboard. I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I wasn't waiting for David to come to his senses, or for Ashley to fake tears at my door. I'd already given them more grace than they ever earned. This wasn't about reconciliation. This was about removal. Quiet, legal, final removal. Still, I'll admit, this part wasn't easy. You don't raise someone for 30 years, sacrifice for them, bury your whole damn youth in their future, and then celebrate taking something back. There's no joy in that. Only clarity. And sometimes clarity cuts deeper than hate. On the 7th day, I went to church. Sat in my usual spot. 2 pews from the front, far right side, where the sunlight hits the stained glass windows just enough to make the dust sparkle. I didn't pray for strength, already had it. I prayed for peace. Not for me. For David. Because after this, there would be no going back. I walked out before the benediction. I didn't want hugs. I didn't want pity. I just wanted silence. When I got home, I found the voicemail. It was from Patricia. Judge signed the ruling. Title reversion is final. The house is legally yours again, Rose. They have 3 days to vacate, or they'll be removed by force. She didn't say it cold. Patricia's a bulldog in court but soft in spirit. I could hear the sympathy in her voice. She knew this wasn't just paperwork. It was blood work. I didn't listen to the rest. I knew what came next. The countdown had become official. 3 days. The next morning, I took a slow walk through my condo. No music, just the sound of my slippers dragging across tile. I passed by the shelf where I keep my photo albums. My fingers hovered over the spines. I almost pulled one down, David's high school graduation, the look in his eyes when I handed him his first laptop. He hugged me so tight that day I couldn't breathe. But I didn't open it. I wasn't in the mood to mourn someone still breathing. I made tea instead. No sugar. Then I opened Facebook. Not for them.
For me.
I typed. Some people forget the foundation they're standing on until it moves. No names, no shade. Just truth. 37 likes. 8 comments. All from women I'd known for decades. Women who had raised children into strangers. Women who had paid rent on respect and got evicted anyway. One comment said, "Say it louder, Rose." Another just said, "I feel this." Later that afternoon, I went to the bank. I requested a full printout of the utilities and property maintenance accounts still in my name. The house had been theirs in theory, but I never took my name off the records. I'd kept paying the property insurance. I knew Ashley didn't notice. Those kinds of women never ask who's behind the curtain, long as the lights stay on. The clerk gave me a folder an inch thick. I smiled. Back home, I flipped through it all. Dates, amounts, auto deductions. My generosity printed in black ink. David called that night. Not from his number, it was a new line, one I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, I heard the voice of a man I didn't recognize either. Mama, I know you're mad. I know we made mistakes. But can we please talk before this goes too far? Too far? He must have thought this was step one. Like I hadn't been sitting on this decision since the first time he closed that door in my face. I didn't call back. 2 days left. Ashley called next. I didn't answer. She texted instead. You're hurting your son more than you realize. You're tearing this family apart. People are talking. I typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. Then I sent one message. I stayed out of your marriage like I was told. Now stay out of my house. Blocked her after that. I didn't need to see whatever performative meltdown she had planned next. 1 day left. Patricia called again. She said the sheriff had already been scheduled to oversee the transition. She asked if I wanted to be there when the locks were changed. I said, no. I've already seen enough. That night, I cooked dinner. Not takeout, not leftovers, a full spread. Collard greens, baked chicken, black-eyed peas, cornbread. The kind of meal that smells like roots and redemption. The kind I used to make when David came home from college. I didn't do it to celebrate. I did it because I needed to remember who I was before they tried to rewrite me. I ate alone, quietly, gratefully. Then I went to the fridge, opened the door, took out the cobbler. It was still there, covered in foil, slightly wilted. I warmed it up, sat down at the table, took one bite, and it tasted just like I remembered.
Sweet. Satisfying.
The morning came quietly. I woke before the sun touched the blinds. My body, it always knows. Doesn't matter how long I sleep on days like that, I just wake fully alert, ready. No music, no phone. Just me and the hum of the fridge and the whisper of God saying, this is the day it ends. I didn't plan to be at the house. I told Patricia that already. I wanted nothing to do with the actual handover. I'd signed the paperwork. I'd set it in motion. My name was back on the deed. The house was mine again. I didn't need to watch anyone pack a box. I didn't want to hear a single excuse. I didn't want to see David's eyes. Not if they weren't going to be the ones I remembered. So I stayed home. Made coffee the old way, not from a machine, not from a pot. I boiled it in the pot like I used to when I couldn't afford filters. And while it brewed, I stood in the kitchen and watched the light creep across the counter. And I thought, today I cut the cord. Then there was a knock. At first, I thought it was the sheriff, maybe someone dropping off final paperwork. But when I looked through the peephole and saw her, I almost closed the door again without thinking. Ashley. On my porch. Holding a little-to-go cup of coffee, like it meant something. I didn't open the door right away. I let her knock again. I needed her to feel what it's like to be on the outside. Not invited, not welcomed. Just tolerated. When I finally opened it, I didn't bother with greetings. She tried to smile. She wore those oversized sunglasses that women wear when they want to look dramatic in public. Her hair was pulled back tight, but not in a cute way, in a rushed, anxious, I didn't sleep kind of way. I just want to talk, she said, soft as sugar she never gave me. I didn't step aside. Say it from there. Please, she tried again. Just 5 minutes. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just crossed my arms and leaned against the door frame like I had all the time in the world. She exhaled like she was the one being wronged. We didn't mean to disrespect you, she said. It was just boundaries, you know? I stared at her. I wanted her to say it with her whole chest like she did the day she joked about changing my locks. But she couldn't, because today the locks weren't a joke anymore. You called me a guest in my own home, I said, and laughed while doing it. That wasn't what It was. I cut her off. Don't lie now. You knew exactly what you were doing. You wanted me erased. quietly, neatly, like old furniture no one wants to get rid of in front of company. She looked away. You didn't just ignore me, I continued. You dishonored me. You took what I bled for, smiled for the camera, and made me the background noise. She swallowed. Then she said something she shouldn't have. David didn't mean any of this. That's when the fire rose in me. No, I said. So when he looked me in the face and said this wasn't my home anymore, when he stood beside you like a shadow and watched you belittle me, when he let you post photos calling that house your dream without a single word of credit to the woman who paid for the foundation, that wasn't his choice. She went quiet like someone slapped her without touching her. You don't get to come here and pretend this was an accident, I said. You knew what you were doing. You wanted me gone. Well, now you got it. Congratulations. Her lip trembled, that performative tremble women like her master so well. You're really going to make us homeless? I scoffed. Homeless? Please. You've got followers, sponsors, your family. You've got options. What you don't have is my house anymore. I built a brand around that kitchen, she snapped. And I built the kitchen, I said coldly, before you ever knew what a ring light was. She tried again. People are talking, Rose. You're ruining our image. Do you care about how this affects David's job? His reputation? I laughed then. Not loud, just enough to let her know how pathetic it sounded. He cared about my dignity? I asked. My standing in this family? My image when he shut me out of the house I gave him? She didn't answer. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, made sure she couldn't even breathe inside my peace. I leaned in close. You should have read the clause, I said. It was right there. Small print. The same way y'all made me small in my own home. She finally broke. Not all the way, but her eyes welled up. And for a second, she looked like someone who finally saw the train coming, too late to move. Then she said something weak, something desperate. What do we tell the neighbors? I smiled wide this time. Tell them the truth, I said. Tell them the house went back to the one who never left it. She walked off then. No more tears, no more begging. Just quiet footsteps and shame. The same shame she tried to hand me on a silver platter 6 months ago when I stood on my porch with peach cobbler and a heart full of love. I watched her drive away. No honk, no wave. Just gone. Patricia texted at 10:06 p.m. They're out. Keys collected. Locks changed. Property cleared. All yours. I didn't reply. I just sat down at my kitchen table and looked at my hands. The same hands that cleaned operating rooms, braided David's hair, planted roses, and signed the paper that took back everything they thought I forgot how to claim. I wasn't angry anymore. I was sovereign. And that silence? That was the sound of a matriarch taking back her name. The day after the eviction, the neighborhood group chat exploded. I wasn't even on it, but Miss Caroline from across the street sent me screenshots all morning. There was one from a woman named Brittany, lived 2 houses down from Maple. Did y'all see the sheriff out there? What happened? Then someone else chimed in. I thought they owned that place. Ashley always said it was her dream home. Then the story started. Apparently, David and Ashley didn't tell anyone what was going on. No notice, no warning. Just left the house in silence while the locksmith changed the bolts. No truck, no help. Just 2 people walking out of a life they pretended to build, carrying boxes they thought they were entitled to. By 3 p.m., it was online. A small local blog posted a write-up. Young couple evicted from historic family home in quiet legal dispute. They didn't mention my name, but they didn't need to. In the comments, people were already digging. Someone found the wedding photos from 4 years ago, me in a navy dress, handing them a small wooden box tied with ribbon. Inside had been the keys and a handwritten note. To my son and his new bride, I hope this home holds the kind of peace I never had. May you build without forgetting who laid the first brick. It had gone semi-viral at the time. People said it made them cry. That post resurfaced, and when it did, everything changed. People weren't mad at me. They were mad at them. One comment said, "Y'all erased the woman who gave you the roof." Another, "She built that home, and they turned her into a guest." Another, Black mothers are not ornamental. They are the foundation. I didn't comment. I didn't share. I didn't say a word. But I watched. Watched as Ashley locked her social media. Watched as David's job quietly removed his photo from their website's homepage. Watched as the house sat still on Maple Avenue. Quiet now. Finally peaceful. I went there once. Just once. I parked across the street and sat in my car with the engine off. It was the same house, but it felt different. Maybe because for the first time in years, it didn't carry the sound of laughter that didn't belong to me. It didn't have a porch full of strangers or the smell of food I didn't cook. It just existed, waiting. 2 days later, David called. This time, he didn't use a block number. I knew it was him. I let it ring twice before picking up. His voice was dry, flat. Not angry anymore, just hollow. Hi. That was all he said. Hi, I said back. I just wanted to say I saw the posts, Mom. There was a pause. I could hear him breathing, hear the words he was struggling to form. Everything's kind of falling apart right now. I didn't answer. Ashley's blaming me. Her family's disappointed. I didn't answer. He exhaled. You really didn't have to go that far. That made me blink. I almost laughed, but I didn't. David, I said, calm as glass. I didn't go far. I went home. Silence again. You embarrassed us, he whispered. No, I said. You embarrassed me. I just made it legal. He didn't speak after that. I don't know if he expected tears or softness, or for me to fold like I used to when he scraped his knee and cried until I picked him up. But this wasn't the same boy, and I wasn't the same mother. Not anymore. You told me to stay out of your marriage. I continued. So, I stayed out of everything tied to it. That includes the house, the bank transfers, and my silence. You don't get to treat me like a stranger and keep my name on your foundation. He finally said it. I'm sorry. It didn't land the way he thought it would. Not because it wasn't overdue, but because it was empty. He didn't call me when the lawyer's letters came. He didn't defend me when Ashley laughed. He didn't check on me when I stopped coming around. He only came to say sorry when the internet decided I was right. And that's not an apology. That's PR. I didn't accept it. I didn't reject it. I just said, thank you. Then I hung up. Because some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to be closed. Later that evening, I made dinner again. Something simple, lentils and rice, some kale on the side. I ate in silence. No TV, no music. Just the hum of peace. And after dinner, I pulled out a photo from an old shoebox. David at 10 years old, sitting on the porch with his arms full of school supplies I bought from 3 different stores because we couldn't afford everything in one trip. I looked at that boy for a long time. Then I put the photo away. Because I had mourned him already. The house sat empty for 2 weeks. No curtains, no laughter, no porch lights flicking on at dusk. Just silence, like the building itself was holding its breath after everything it had witnessed. After all the prayers, the betrayals, the muffled sobs behind bathroom doors. The peach cobbler that never made it past the threshold. The house was resting. I didn't rush to fill it. I didn't list it online or call any real estate friends. I needed time. Time to let go of what it used to be. Time to remember who I was before I handed the key to someone who couldn't be bothered to say thank you. People kept asking what I was going to do with it. Are you moving back in, Miss Rose? You should Airbnb it, make some money back. One neighbor, half whispering, said, I'd burn it down if I were you, just for peace. But peace doesn't come from fire. It comes from forgiveness. Not for them, for me. And forgiveness, I've learned, doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means I'm done carrying what you tried to bury me under. So one morning, I got in my car and drove across town. Not to Maple Street, but to a quiet little daycare tucked between a laundromat and a tire shop. It wasn't much, but the sign out front had caught my eye weeks ago. Children rise when they know they're safe. Inside, I met a woman named Maria. She ran the place with the kind of exhaustion only single mothers know. She had a soft voice and fast hands, always cleaning something, always watching everything at once. She had 2 kids, a girl and a boy, 5 and 7. Lived in a one-bedroom apartment across town that leaked when it rained. I didn't ask for her story, but she gave it anyway. Not because she was looking for help, but because sometimes people like us don't get asked how we're doing. And when we finally are, the truth just spills out. I went home, pulled the deed from my drawer, and called Patricia. I found who it belongs to, I said. She didn't even ask if I was sure. The papers were signed 3 days later. I didn't give them the house the same way I gave it to David. No party, no pictures, no ribbon. Just a firm handshake and a small box with 2 keys and a note. Maria, build gently. Love loudly. Make it a home where no one ever feels like a guest. Rose. I didn't go with them the day they moved in. I didn't need to. I had already made peace with the house. It was no longer a symbol of what I lost. It was a tool I had reclaimed and passed forward. The next week, I got a card in the mail. Handwritten, blue ink. Inside it said, "My daughter asked if the lady who gave us the house used to be a superhero. I told her yes, because only superheroes can take pain and turn it into a porch full of hope." I put that card on my fridge, right next to a magnet that says protect your peace like it pays the rent. One night, about 2 weeks after the new family moved in, I finally did something I hadn't done since the day I stood on that porch with cobbler in my hands. I walked to the shelf and pulled out the old photo album, the one with David in it. The baby pictures, his 3rd-grade spelling bee, the prom suit I hemmed myself because we couldn't afford tailoring, college graduation, his wedding, all of it. I sat with those photos for hours. I cried, but not like people cry in movies. No loud sobs, no shaking hands, just tears. Soft, steady, like the body was finally letting go of a weight it had carried in secret for too long. I didn't cry for David. I cried for the woman I used to be. The one who kept believing that love meant losing yourself. That sacrifice meant silence. That giving meant disappearing. And when the tears dried, I stood up, closed the album, and slid it back into the drawer. Not because I was erasing him, but because I no longer needed proof that I had done my part. The next morning, I made myself a big breakfast. Eggs, grits, sausage, the whole thing. I played gospel music loud and sang along while I cooked. And when I sat down to eat, I looked out the window and whispered a quiet prayer. Thank you, Lord, for finally teaching me that boundaries are holy too. Later that afternoon, I walked past Maple Avenue. Not on purpose, just part of my daily walk. Maria's daughter was on the porch, braiding a doll's hair. She looked up and smiled, so big you'd think I was Santa. "You the house lady?" she yelled. I laughed. "I suppose I am." "Thank you for my room," she said, waving. Her mama came to the door and smiled too. A quiet kind of smile. The kind that says, "I'm building something and don't worry, I got this." And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't a story about a house being taken back. This was a story about a woman finally remembering she never needed permission to take up space. They told me I was just a guest. But now I'm the foundation. And I ain't leaving. Ever.